to this afternoon, where the FBI Chicago office actually put out this information to the media, saying that this morning FBI Chicago and dedicated task force officers successfully apprehended a suburban Chicago subject this morning alleged to have made death threats against federal law enforcement. Now, in terms of what we've learned, we do have some inside connections on this. And this is what we've learned about it. Fox 32 Chicago has actually learned those alleged threats were made against ICE agents and also prominent political figures. We do know charges are expected to be announced later today. We did contact the U.S. Attorney's Office to see exactly what time these charges will be coming down. We don't know that just yet. They did actually put out some pictures along with the tweet showing an arrest being made. Now, in terms of exactly what happened here, those are the details we expect to learn during that press conference. But what we can say and what we do know, just looking across the country, there is a heightened sense of urgency when it comes to ICE agents, political figures, looking at the political climate. In fact, there was a protest today that happened in Bridgeview. So we are seeing kind of like this heightened sense of awareness from these agencies because the political times are so heightened right now. So at some points, chaotic at the same time. So we don't know all of the intricate details of what happened and how the FBI got this information. But the good news is we do know there's an arrest, and the FBI went on to say there is a zero tolerance for this type of behavior. So we'll be waiting to see exactly what happens in this. And as soon as we get the information, if Chicago Live is still going, we'll be sure to bring you that information right here on the show live. So stay with us as this story continues to develop. Brian?
Thank you so much, T. And Chicago Live will be with you until 3 p.m. this Friday afternoon. We look forward to more updates on that arrest that is coming of a suburban man by the FBI Chicago person who allegedly made some death threats against U.S. Federal law enforcement officers. Now we would like to bring in Professor Joe Schwieterman. He's a transportation expert from DePaul University. Right now there are some aviation hearings going on, and he's going to give us a little bit more perspective on that. Thanks so much for your time.
Great to be here. Thank you.
First, give us a little bit of your background in aviation.
Oh, yeah, much of my life. I spent about 8 years at United Airlines earlier in my career. Now, professor at DePaul, I edit an aviation journal. It's really a busy time for air travel, and it's fun to watch.
Again, thanks so much for your time this afternoon, and we're here to talk about some of these aviation hearings. Why, in your opinion, would you say that they are significant, and what would you say is at stake for both the public and the aviation industry?
Well, this accident in Washington is really going to be center stage at Reagan Airport. And we got into a law thinking that we had air traffic at busy airports under control. And then last year, there's a whole spate of accidents. We had an accident out west in the Pacific Northwest. Canada had a bad accident as well. And we realized that a lot of our systems are antiquated with drones, with military aircraft, and so forth. And the Reagan accident, which a regional jet, crashed into the Black Hawk helicopter, just shocked us all, and that's really started this whole discussion.
So, as far as these hearings, what do we expect to be some of the outcomes? Do we think that there are going to be some changes in terms of are those military, airplanes and helicopters allowed to fly and share airspace with commercial airlines? What are we expecting to come out of this?
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, we had multiple errors at Reagan Airport, but the military was given special exemptions to operate around busy airports because of, I think, the level of trust in the Pentagon, the advanced equipment they have. And a major mistake was made that Black Hawk was flying way too high, and the policy was way too generous to start out with, that, allowing helicopters to be anywhere near a busy airport like this. It just was a bad idea. So that's been changed. But in the process, there's been a lot more discussion about general aviation, these smaller airplanes flying from airports. We have Chicago Executive Airport, DuPage County, and others, all kind of near O'Hare. And so, our tolerance for airline accidents is so low that we just aren't willing to take any kind of risks that we may have been willing to take 20 years ago for good reason. And boy, it was a wake-up call in Washington.
It really was a wake-up call, a sad day indeed. In your viewpoint, do you think that these hearings that are taking place now are more about accountability for what's happened in the past or more so shaping the future of aviation?
Well, with Congress, there's always an element of theater where there's going to be some profound quotes that that end up on the news. But I do think Washington, these politicians, elected officials, fly to D.C. back and forth every week, and they just know how crowded that Reagan Airport is. And of course, 9/11, some of those, the crises for that involved flights near Reagan Airport and the Pentagon. So Washington's had more than its share of problems. Now we're in a good spot here in Chicago with the O'Hare modernization program. We really unclogged those O'Hare runways. So we have parallel runways and so forth. But technology, boys, just in the last year, the rising number of use of drones and aerial spacecraft that are going to start using commercial service in the sky soon, little small vertical airplanes. That's going to be a game changer.
What would you say, if any, what do you think the outcomes could be for maybe the ticket prices and maybe changes to routes, or overall operations based on what's decided in Washington?
Yeah, well, the good news is we do know these regional jets, which are less safe than big airplanes for lots of reasons. The avionics on board, just their susceptibility to bad weather. Those are being grounded now. We're seeing that at O'Hare, with United in particular is operating fewer of these smaller planes and going to the bigger planes, the 737s, the A320s, and so forth. And that means fewer flights because you have more people on every flight. And of course, less runway and airport congestion. And that also can bring down fares. So if you've been following the news, O'Hare is just on a great streak that we're back above pre-pandemic travel volumes, and both American and United are growing with bigger planes, which helps everybody.
With a hearing like this, and from you speaking to, I guess, others within the transportation, systems and things of that nature, what do you think these hearings could do to maybe improve public trust when they do get into a plane that they're going to get there safely?
Oh, exactly right. And airlines are held in pretty low esteem by the public, partly because the problems we saw from 21 to 23, where we had mass cancellations and airport waits, and rebooking flights became a royal hassle because the chat features weren't working. So the public really wants to be reassured that airlines are kind of civil to its customers and also safe. And the airlines have got the memo. It's been really good to see. They have more spare airplanes there. They have revamped the way they engage with consumers. They don't bump passengers as much, and that's really helped. And airfares have come down. Lately, they're up a little bit in the last few months, but we're seeing a nice rebound in public trust. But last year, these accidents really had people scratching their heads, and the FAA wants to make sure this isn't something fundamental about all the congestion that puts us in harm's way.
Now, Professor Sweeterman, I may be putting you on the spot here a little bit with this next question. We're obviously seeing a lot of advances here in AI, and we're kind of at a shortage of having air traffic controllers. Do you think that AI and the future use of technology could possibly be an answer to fill in some of those gaps that we're seeing?
I do think that. You look at the job of a pilot, and in addition to following a checklist and doing things by protocol, which we know is going to continue, there's so many intangibles that work together. And you think about climate events and aviation protocol changes, say when Air Force One is in the air and so forth. There's so much happening in the mind of a pilot, a captain in particular, that anything we can do to simplify that can really allow for better decision making. And so you see, when things get stressful in the cockpit, bad decisions can be made. And that's where airlines are looking to AI. If we can summarize the issues in 3 paragraphs rather than having to read 5 different reports, you're just a better pilot, because your mind's not being pulled in so many different places. Airlines are excited about that. And air traffic control can use that too, because, let's face it, it's a burnout profession, and we're really low on controllers right now.
Professor Joe Schwieterman from DePaul University, our transportation expert. Thanks so much for your words and your insight on the aviation hearings currently taking place in our nation's capital. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
All right, time is now 1:10 on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. We'll be right back after a short break. Time is now 1:13 on this Friday afternoon. We're now going to be joined by Caitlin Bremner. She has had a wedding disaster. The dream wedding venue that she thought she was going to be walking down the aisle to is not going to happen. She joins us now to explain exactly what happened here. You're joined by your fiance. Thank you both for being here.
Yes, hi Jim. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
And I want to start with the fiance. What's your name? We didn't get your name.
I'm Evan.
Thank you both for being here. And I understand you guys are actually on your way to a wedding now.
We are, yeah. We're about to leave in a few minutes for a friend's wedding.
Well, thank you for giving us your time. Now, Caitlin, I was reading up on this, and it said that you actually booked your dream wedding venue before your fiance even proposed. So how did you know that timing was coming?
Actually, we did it a little after our engagement.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we got engaged the day after Christmas, and we started doing some tours in March. We actually live in Minnesota, so we're out of state, so that has added a bit of trickiness to figuring out our wedding back in Chicago. And so we booked Cuneo back in March when we toured.
And when we saw it, it was just, we knew it was the one for us, and it was just fit every box that we wanted.
What was that moment where you said it checked every box? Walk us through what are some of those boxes? What made it the perfect venue for you guys?
Yeah, so we both come from big families, so we knew we needed a venue that could accommodate all of our family and loved ones and friends. And Cuneo checked that box off the bat. And I mean, from the minute we stepped in the doors, it's a gorgeous venue, a beautiful home. We loved that the guests would be able to walk around the mansion and tour and see what the Cuneo family lived in the house, the beautiful grounds, a place for a nice ceremony, and some personal reasons as well. My grandfather is from Italy, and so is the Cuneo family, and the style of the house is an Italian villa, and my grandfather also went to Loyola University, who owned the venue, and he passed away a few years ago, so it was kind of a nice way to honor my heritage and my grandpa, and we just fell in love the minute we walked in.
Caitlin, give us an idea of the timing of this, of when you booked the venue and when you received this email that said you were no longer going to be able to hold your dream wedding there.
Yeah, so we toured back in March, and I think we officially signed our contract either last week of March, first week of April. So it's been about 6 months, and we've had a lot of other vendors booked already for our date next year. And we found out last Thursday, we got an email at 5 p.m., just kind of a very basic template email with no real information, just informing us that Loyola had sold the venue and that they were not going to be able to hold any events there in 2026.
So what was your follow-up process from there? I can't imagine because I haven't been in this situation. So what was going through your mind when you got this initial email? You said at 5 p.m.
Immediate panic, very stressed, not really sure. The email really didn't have a lot of information. So we immediately emailed the woman, the contact at Loyola, just to see if she had any information. We tried calling, emailing. We didn't get a response right away. So it was kind of just a few days of...
It was frustrating for us because, especially so, because it came right at the end of Thursday, and then we were coming up on a holiday weekend. So the time that it took to get a response was elongated, and we didn't hear anything until days ago now. So we had to, spring into action without any follow-up, any personal notice that, yes, everything is canceled. Just this very scant letter with not much information.
So since then, have you been able to gather any more information on why all the events were canceled? And of course, the obvious question is, I'm sure you guys put down deposits and things of that nature. So what happens with that?
Yeah, so Loyola informed us we'd be getting our deposit back for renting the mansion for our wedding. In terms of other deposits, we did have a lot of vendors booked. However, I will say they have all been lovely and amazing, and we're so appreciative. They've all been very understanding. A lot of them we booked because they were on Cuneo's preferred vendor list, so they've all worked there multiple times before. They kind of all seemed as blindsided by this as we were. They've all been great. Some of them have been reaching out to new venues to check availability for our date on our behalf. We really couldn't be more thankful to have them on our team, and they're all working with us to either come with us to a new venue or a new date. So we're hoping we don't lose too many deposits with the ones we have booked, but we'll see.
We even broke the news to a couple of the vendors who had recently done weddings there and had no idea any of that was going on.
Any idea what that venue is going to be used for in the future? And did they at least apologize for this obviously huge inconvenience?
Not exactly. They told us that the buyer wants to remain anonymous, so we don't know who the buyer is. We don't know if they intend to continue using the mansion as a place to hold events. We're trying to inquire if the new buyer has any intention of possibly honoring any of the dates, because we know that Cuneo has been booked for weddings. I think they're booked most of the whole year, every Saturday next year, for at least the prime time months in the summer. So we have no idea if they intend to honor it or if we'll find out who the buyer is before November, but we don't really have time to wait. If we need to book another venue, we can't wait until November. And the letter template honestly wasn't very personalized. It just said, we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause, even though it obviously immediately caused a pretty big inconvenience for us.
And you guys are at least trying to make the best out of a terrible situation. How are you doing? Obviously, this is a very emotional time for you guys as well. I mean, this is supposed to be one of the biggest and brightest and happiest events of your life. So how are you, I guess, kind of channeling that energy into finding a new venue?
Yeah, we're really lucky. Our family has jumped in, full support behind us. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in Minnesota actually, so we weren't able to come home right away, but my mom, Evan's sister, have all been going to do some tours for us, sending us photos, putting us on FaceTime. Like I said, our vendors have been reaching out to some places, so we're all hands on deck, and we're excited about some options that we've come across in the last week, and we know that we'll get it figured out.
Are you guys still considering anywhere in the Chicagoland area?
Yes, we are.
All right. If you guys are able to do that, we'll have to come in and make this whole and tell you guys a story. Thanks so much for your time, and safe travels as you celebrate a wedding for some friends this weekend. And hopefully your own wedding is not that far away. Thanks so much again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it'll happen. The important thing is that we're together and we're going to get married, and that's all that truly, at the end of the day matters to us.
I can see the love between you two guys. Thanks so much for sure.
Thank you.
All right, time is now 1:21 on this Friday afternoon here on Chicago Live. Next, we're going to be talking with ComEd about what is called phantom energy. Have you heard of that? Do you have any idea what that is? Well, we're going to explain it to you. We're joined by Kara Schwer. She is one of ComEd's energy efficiency specialists that are nicknamed energy doctors. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this today.
So I'd never heard of phantom energy until I was preparing for this interview. What exactly is it?
Yeah, so phantom energy is the electricity that's used by devices that are plugged in but switched off. So a lot of times too, we'll call it vampire energy because it's sneaky and it can increase your electric bills without you even realizing it.
When you say increase, obviously we're all checking that bottom line for our energy bill when we get it from ComEd. Just how much money are we talking? Are we talking $10, $50, hundreds? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so it really depends on the size of the home and the number of appliances in the home, but the U.S. Department of Energy says these devices can use up to 10% of home's energy. That could cost the average household about $100 annually.
That is definitely adds up over time. So when it comes to unplugging some of these devices, obviously you're not going to want to unplug your refrigerator. That could lead to some other issues, or maybe a deep freezer. What are some of the ones that you would target to maybe kind of help with what you're calling phantom energy?
Yeah, so the usual suspects that we see are any electronics with clocks, timers, or sensors. So think smart TVs, video game consoles, computers, kitchen appliances, even printers or cell phone chargers that are plugged into the wall, but that you don't have a cell phone plugged into that.
And how would you say phantom energy contributes to climate change as well?
Yeah, so one important thing is that remembering that higher energy demand may require more emission producing power plants, and reducing energy overall really helps limit the greenhouse gas emissions, and it benefits the environment overall.
Kara, how is, I guess, ComEd outside of this interview maybe spreading the word about this? Because everybody wants to save, $1 or $2 on their bill.
Yeah, so two things that I always share with my friends and family, and I always remind them, is to one, unplug. So unplug any electronic device and charger when they're not in use. Do a sweep through your kitchen, look at the appliances. I have to admit, I have accumulated quite a few appliances over the years. So looking at the Nespresso machine or the Ninja Creamy, do these need to be plugged in every single day? Or can I unplug them and plug them in when I'm using them? So that's one, to do a sweep around the kitchen, around the game room, the TV room. The second tip is to use power strips. So this is a great way to save energy because you can plug your appliances into the power strip, and then when you flip that switch of off, it's truly off and it's no longer drawing the power from the appliance, and you'll be able to save energy and to save on your bill.
I haven't used one of those in quite some time. I guess I'm going to have to place my order for one of those. If somebody wants to follow up and maybe has a few more questions about phantom energy and they want to reach out to you, is there a way that they can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can visit ComEd.com, and under the Ways to Save tab, you'll see there's an Energy Doctor link where you can write in with any inquiries you have. We also recommend customers visit ComEd.com/bill support, and there they can learn about special payment arrangements, due date extensions, and budget billing to help them save. Because like you said, every dollar matters, and a higher electric bill can be stressful. So we are committed to helping customers save energy, even if it's these low cost, no cost tips that you can implement into your daily routine.
Kara, while we have you here, when we're talking about saving money on that electric bill, as we're kind of changing seasons here, there are certain things that our viewers at home should be keeping in mind as we're kind of transitioning from the end of summer into fall?
Yes, so it is, I feel, officially sweater season. And I am very relieved because, as you know, we had such a hot summer here. One thing that I recommend to do is to do a walkthrough around your house and do a weatherization check. So are there any drafty windows or doors? There's a lot of things that you can do to help with that, like door sweeps and caulking and spray foam insulation. And those are typically lower cost products that can help you save on your bill. So if you visit chemed.com/appliance, you'll see all the discounts and rebates we offer on those energy saving products.
All right, Kara from ComEd, thanks so much for your time and helping us all save a couple of dollars on our electric bill. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, time is now 1:27. We got a lot more to come here on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. A live look outside. It's going to be a very, very beautiful weekend here in Chicago, and it is that time for the Taste of Chicago. Of course, it is now in September. If you grew up here, you used to remember, it used to be around the July 4th holiday. We're joined now by Sam Toya from the Illinois Restaurant Association. He's going to give us a preview of all the good eats that everybody's going to get a chance to get their hands on this weekend. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sam, what would you say is new this year in terms of the Taste of Chicago?
Okay, so we have 43 restaurant booths and 15 food trucks. Some of the new restaurant booths is we have Hubbard Inn, we have Lexington Betty, we have Dow Thai Restaurants, to name a few. 20% of the restaurant booths and food trucks are new this year. And we got restaurants from Pullman to Hermosa. So we want all your viewers to come down and enjoy the Taste of Chicago, the granddaddy of Fest.
For Chicagoans who have been coming year and year and year after year, What do you think makes this event so special? For me, it's one of my favorite memories as a kid.
Well, you know, what's so special about it is we get a lot of independent restaurants. Chicago's an independent restaurant town. So we get a lot of independent restaurants that come and participate, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that come through Taste of Chicago. Then they can see these great restaurants, these independent restaurants from our 77 communities, and then they can say, hey, I want to go back to that restaurant. So this is a great marketing tool for our independent restaurants here in the culinary capital of the United States, Chicago.
Culinary capital. I can get behind that one. Sam, you mentioned some of these newer restaurants from different neighborhoods. Could you single them out for us?
Yeah, so there's Lexington Betty, which is out of Pullman, and she's got, it's like
Barbecue,
like a smoked
yeah,
ribs
yeah,
and briskets. So that's really good. So check out Lexington Betty, and she's out of the Pullman neighborhood. We have Hubbard Inn, which is out of the River North neighborhood, and they got some great stuff too. Mac and cheese and some great sandwiches, chicken sandwiches and stuff like that. We have, Franco's here too from Bridgeport. They got some great food too, Italian ice as well. So you have a little bit of everything here at the Taste of Chicago. Like I said, there's 43 food booths and 15 food trucks.
So how do tickets work for this event? I know it's free to attend, but in terms of people wanting to get a taste of whether it's the barbecue or Asian food or Asian fusion food or tacos, how does that part work?
So don't leave peace out. But anyway, so what it does is, you go up and you buy it. If you have cash, you got to go buy like a cash card. But if you have a debit card or credit card, you just go right up to the booth and you just charge it and you get your samples or your full portion, whatever you want. But I would say get the samples so you can, taste as many different restaurants that are participating here at the Taste of Chicago.
And Sam, also we got some other events happening outside of the Taste of Chicago. We got musical acts and really a drone show. They got dance lessons. Why is this event every year? It's not just about food. It's really fun for the entire family.
No, this is family focused. This is what the mayor wants. It's family focused, and you've got a lot of different things, like you said, music to trivia games to karaoke. We got it, everything, and we also got cocktails and mock cocktails as well too. So you could get those as well with your food.
All right, Sam, are there one or two places that are on your list? You're the expert here, so I want to know where you're going.
They're all my favorites, but I got to give a shout out to Robinson Ribs. They've been here since day one, them and Eli's Cheesecake. So those are our granddaddies of the granddaddies of Fest.
And our producer, Jim, was saying that the Taste of Chicago used to be known for having great food on a stick. Do you have any favorites in terms of that?
Again, we have everything. Like you've mentioned, we have Thai food, we have pizza, we have ribs, we got grilled chicken, we got anything you want, we have it. So get down here and taste some great food.
All right, Sam, thanks so much for your time. Taste of Chicago
Thank
happening
you.
this weekend, starts today. And we're going to have some wonderful weather as well for the Taste of Chicago this year. Sam, again, thanks for your time as we bring in
Thank you.
Caitlin,
Oh,
Cody. Hey.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. It was a little gray out there a little bit earlier. It looks like it's brightening up just a little bit.
It's very cloudy, very cloudy. So it's not out of the question that we have a sprinkle here or there, but the main headline for today has been the wind, the cooler temperatures, so in the upper 60s today, and that's going to be the case through the weekend too. So overnight lows tonight actually getting down into the 40s, so maybe close your windows at
40s,
night.
that's chilly.
Very cold, low 40s in western counties. But this weekend, dry skies are expected. Highs are going to be hovering in the upper 60s. And then next week, we get some warmer weather. Starting off Monday, sunny skies, 74 degrees. Then back to around 80 Tuesday and Wednesday. So warmer conditions. But actually, our normal high today is 79 degrees.
79, we're a long ways away from that.
Yeah, well below where we should be. That fall feel absolutely in place. But we have a long stretch of very quiet conditions. Now, something else that's been going on is the strong gusty winds. Today, we're still seeing those winds around 25 to 30 miles per hour. So high waves now, mostly in Porter County, LaPorte, Berrien County. That's where you have that beach hazard in effect through this evening. Outside of that, Chicago beaches, it's cool enough that you're not going to be tempted to go in the lake anyway. But the winds are going to slowly start to die down on that beach hazard, as mentioned, until 7 p.m.
So we got the Taste of Chicago happening from today through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 9. When we get towards the back half of that time, we're talking that 6 to 9. What should people be wearing in terms of dress? Is a hoodie okay? Do they need something a little bit heavier?
I think a hoodie would be good if it's a thick one,
Okay.
not like a.
Because you're right down there on the lake, and you kind of get the
It's
wind.
gonna be cold. It's gonna be cold.
Yeah.
It's cold, I think. But I hate the cold. You know me. I would say layered up. We're in Chicago. In the afternoon you might be able to take it off if you're under the sun. But with highs in the 60s, upper 60s, most of the day is going to be in the low to mid 60s. So a jacket, I think, even maybe like a light fall jacket.
Light fall, so it's time to bring those out of the.
Maybe like a jean jacket with like a hoodie underneath it.
Oh, that's one of my favorite things to wear.
It's so cute.
It
Yeah, I
is.
could see that. But yeah.
And
fall feel.
also, Bears football, Monday
Yeah.
Night Football. What's on tap for the forecast?
Same.
The kickoff.
We're kind of on copy, paste, repeat. So slightly warmer Monday, but by the time we have the game, I would say definitely have to be prepared for the chill.
And you said bring out those fall jackets. So do you think after this, maybe a little spell of, you said, I think you had a 79 in your 7-day there. Do you think it's all kind of downhill from there in terms of the temperature?
Our 10-day outlook actually has those warm temperatures back again.
Okay.
But,
well, of course, we're in
but
Chicago.
this is where we should be. 79 degrees is our normal high. So even though it feels more summery compared to where we are today, that's where we should be. This is well below where we should be. So fall definitely came and smacked us in the face, Brian.
It did, but
yes,
I liked
it did.
It was
I
a
think
love
everybody's pretty
tap.
happy.
It was more of a love tap.
Yeah, we
than a
didn't get
smack.
snow. Yeah.
Caitlin, Cody, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. All right, we'll be right back on Chicago Live with much more. Thumbs down coming up on 140 on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. One of our top stories this week on Fox32Chicago.com has been the discovery of nearly 100 different cars right in the heart of the Chicago River. We're joined now by the Executive Director of Friends of the Chicago River, Margaret Frisbee. Thanks so much for your time.
Brian, thanks for having us today.
So, Margaret, what was your first reaction when you read or you first heard this story of nearly 100 cars being found right in the Chicago River?
Well, I'll be honest, Brian, it's a symbol of how people used to view the Chicago River. It really used to be a dumping ground, and we're just grateful that today people don't think of the river that way anymore.
And when it comes to these 100 cars, And you mentioned that in the past it was kind of looked at as more of a dumping ground. What else do you think could be down there?
Well, I can tell you there's a lot of fish. There's turtles, there's muskrats, there's beavers, but we do still find litter. And, the litter has really changed over the years. We've been working with Loyola University of Chicago and doing research on the litter in the river. And obviously, there are things at the bottom that's part of this legacy of the old river when it was much more industrialized and it was fenced off and polluted, and people thought of it as a dumping ground. Today's litter, although by bulk, obviously, those cars take up a lot of space. What's coming into the river mostly is actually plastics. What we found from our research is 85% of what is in the river that's floating that people find is plastic, and of that 85% is food foam. So we know people throw occasional things in. There's reports of divvy bikes, there's reports of the Lime scooters, but mostly it's windblown garbage that should end up in garbage cans.
Yeah, we know that there's definitely a lot of wind, especially if you're walking across some of those bridges with the Chicago River right there below you. For people at home who maybe aren't familiar with the fringe of the Chicago River, what exactly does your organization stand for? And what do you guys have to do with the future of the Chicago River?
So, Friends of the Chicago River was founded in 1979 to protect and restore the Chicago and Calumet rivers. And really, what we stand for is a clean, healthy river that's equally accessible to everybody, that it's alive with wildlife. There's people on the water, in the water, next to the water, and that all of us get to enjoy it equally. It's a tool in a sustainable city, and it's an important economic driver. And we welcome anybody who wants to work with us to help our bright future of the river as a blue-green corridor.
Now, we had this story earlier this week of those cars being found in the river, which I think kind of leads to the question, just how deep is the river?
Well, that's a great question, and it really depends on where you are. So the river has a lot of different services it provides to people. So if you're a fish, it's your home. If you're a barge, it's actually an economic waterway that allows you to transport goods. So in the navigation parts of the river, it could be as deep as 20 feet, so that navigation can occur. And then the upper North Branch, the Little Calumet, the wild parts of the river are a lot shallower. Some places it's 2 to 3 feet, or even 4 to 5. But it's really different, kind of depending on where you are.
Now, we know that we'll see sometimes some boats in the river kind of doing tours. Of course, the architecture tour is very, very famous here. Some people kayaking. What do you view as the future of the river maybe 10, 15 years down the line? What do you hope that we're seeing here in Chicago that we're not currently seeing today?
Well, I think what we're going to see is more of what we're seeing on September 21st this year, which is the first Chicago River Swim. So an organization called Along Swim is hosting this event, and it's going to be literally 500 swimmers from all over the world downtown, and Friends of the Chicago River supporting it. And that's what our vision is for the future, is that the people are in the water, they're recreating, that it's part of everyone's community, and that it's not fenced off and it's not polluted, which it really isn't very much anymore. It's just a place of magic, and that the river can play a great role in building public health and wellness, and providing a hot spot for wildlife. And we want a beautiful blue-green corridor of connected open space for people and for wildlife and resiliency.
Hey, Margaret, you mentioned that wildlife. What kind of wildlife are you hoping that is attracted to the river, whether it's birds, whether it's different species of fish, now that it's a lot cleaner than it used to be?
Well, Brian, we already know that the species of fish have gone up from about 7 to 10 in the 1970s to nearly 80 today, and we're seeing more native fish and greater abundance of fish. But we're also seeing the return of more sensitive creatures like river otters. And so what we're hoping for is that we don't see an occasional river otter, but that's something that people get to be familiar with much more regularly.
A lot of people kind of associate the river with right downtown in the heart of the loop. Could you provide some perspective on just how big it is and just how long it kind of strands from where it starts to where it ends? And also, could you share a little bit more information on which areas of the river have truly improved over the last few years, and are there still a couple of problem spots along the route?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And again, people are so familiar with downtown, and it's full of kayaks and tour boats and super exciting. But the river is actually 156 miles long, not counting tributary streams. So the Chicago River is part of the Skokie Lagoons. The brook in Northbrook is the Chicago River system. The Little Calumet River, the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal, which in fact we're working to redefine, and people can take a survey at ChicagoRiver.org to weigh in on a new name for the canal. We hope to get rid of the word sanitary. And it's really, it flows through forest preserves and parks and suburbs in Chicago. And there's so many ways people can use the river. There's canoeing, there's kayaks, there's the Chicago River Walk, there's the African American Heritage Water Trail, and just a ton of things to do. That, the river is much cleaner. There's water quality standards that protect for swimming. And as I said, we're going to see people swimming in just a couple weeks, but we still have issues with, runoff pollution. So when it rains, everything on the road can end up in the river, and that's water pollution. Sometimes there's still combined sewer overflows, which is very uncommon these days, but sometimes sewage does end up in the river. And then climate change is making it rain harder, and that is washing rain, road salt, garbage into the river. And so we're really concentrating on a few things. One is working to install nature-based solutions, places where the actual rainfall would just get absorbed in the ground the way that it used to before we really developed the whole region with towns and roads and sidewalks and buildings. And so the more that rain can go into the ground like it's supposed to, that means it stays out of our storm sewers, it stays out of our combined sewers, and it stops rushing pollution off the roads into the river. That's a real big one. And we're also working on a litter-free Chicago Calumet River that ties, of course, to the topic that we started with. And we're working with volunteers and policymakers to literally improve the river physically, and then also develop methods, through public policy where we can reduce the waste stream so litter doesn't end up in the river.
Margaret, have you partnered or maybe kind of looked at other cities and kind of what they've done to kind of redevelop their rivers and how it can kind of be an economic driver? As I know you said that you guys partner with Loyola for, I guess, some of the testing and quality of the water, but have you maybe had some conversations with other groups like yourselves in other cities where they're also trying to improve the river conditions there?
Yes, absolutely. This is a worldwide effort. People are recognizing that rivers are places that need to be restored. It's one of the tools in our arsenal against climate change, is opening up our rivers for recreation. A lot of European cities in Australia, New York City, have really embraced their rivers for swimming, and Friends of the Chicago River is part of the International Swimmable Cities movement. And next week in Australia, our policy director is attending an international river symposium in Brisbane. And we're, in fact, a finalist for the Tees International River Prize, which is for river resiliency and management. And all the organizations coming together at this conference next week are looking at what is the role of river for human health, for environmental health, and for economic health. And in Chicago, when you look at these beautiful buildings, you look at new developments, all the wonderful parks that have been developed, the investments the forest preserves are making, you can see that people recognize that the Chicago and Calumet River is a place that should belong to everybody, and that it needs to be something that we think about when we talk to our elected officials and the policies that they make.
Now, I know we got this event coming up later on this month where people will actually be swimming in the Chicago River. Outside of that, any future events?
Yeah, you can join Friends of the Chicago River almost every weekend for paddling events, for community cleanups. We have an autumn boat cruise October 2nd where people can come out with our experts and learn about the river and have a festive beverage and something tasty to eat. And we just ask people to come to our website, ChicagoRiver.org, and join us as a friend, join us as a member, join us at our events, and really help be ambassadors for this wonderful river that has improved so much but still needs our help.
Margaret Frisbee, the Executive Director of Friends of the Chicago River, thanks so much for your time this Friday afternoon.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right, time is now 1:40. Now we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back here on Chicago Live. Welcome back to Chicago Live on this Friday. We take a live look at the New York Stock Exchange and the big board. As you can see, stocks are trending downwards today so far, trading at just under 230 points. Looks like it's at 230.34 as of right now on this Friday. It's going to be a beautiful weekend here in Chicago. We got temperatures in the 70s. Perfect time to take your four-legged friend on a nice long walk. One of the places you can do that this weekend is the Morton Arboretum. They've got the Arboretum Tales on Trails event happening this weekend. We're joined live on Chicago Live this afternoon by Dana. Dana, how do you say your last name?
It's Rotes.
Rotes.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't want to say it the incorrect way. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So first I want to start with, how has this event grown over the last few years?
Really by leaps and bounds. Pre-COVID, I should say, this was always a popular event. And I think after that time, people are really looking for ways to get outside, get out of the city. And the Arboretum really is a perfect landscape for this. So even though this event's been going on for well over 10 years now, we've really seen it grow in the last few.
The Morton Arboretum, for our viewers who aren't that familiar, could you give us a little perspective on some of your favorite things about it and where exactly you guys are located?
Sure. We are located out in the western suburbs. We have 1,700 acres of forest, prairie, oak savanna, well over 16 miles of walking trails and 9 miles of roadways that you can drive. So it's really a nice escape both from the suburbs and from the city. And one of my favorite things about it is really just it changes season over season. There's always something new and no day is the same out at the Arboretum.
And we're definitely kind of right in that midst of changing from the end of summer to the beginning of fall. I know there's going to be a lot of beautiful fall foliage out there. When somebody's bringing their four-legged best friend to Tales on Trails this weekend, what are some of the rules for both the dogs and the humans?
Sure. Thank you for including the humans in that too. No, our main policy is just keep your dogs on a leash, and everyone knows their dog. So if your dog isn't comfortable being around other dogs, again, it's 1,700 acres. You can get well out into the forest, enjoy some time with your best friend. If your dog loves other dogs, bring them in. Tales on the Trails has 43 different vendors this year. So we've got different rescues, different adoption centers, different food and clothing vendors. Everything that you could want for your dog is available this weekend.
Now, are we talking vendors just for the dogs, or are there other local vendors participating as well?
Today, or I should say Sunday, we're primarily focused on the dogs, yes. Bandanas, collars, leashes, dog ice cream, dog treats, cookies, really anything they could want, you can find it here.
Dana, are you a dog owner? Putting you on the spot.
I am a dog owner.
So how does your dog enjoy coming to an event like this?
She loves to go for a walk. She's a big dog. So anytime we can get out on the trails, especially living in the city of Chicago, getting out there really is a breath of fresh air, both for me and for her as well. She goes nuts.
And Dana, when is this event taking place and how do tickets work?
This event takes place this Sunday, September 7th. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the best way to get tickets is to go online. They're always cheaper in advance. So you can get tickets for yourself. Every human needs a ticket, as well as the dogs. Dogs are $5 each. And then admission, of course, is free for Arboretum members.
Is this also a kid-friendly event?
It is a kid-friendly event, yes. Bring the whole family, your four-legged friends, and the two-legged ones as well.
All right, Dana, thanks so much for your time. And have a good time out there at the Morton Arboretum this Sunday. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, time is now 1:56. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on Chicago Live. Time is now 2 o'clock on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. Things are nice and calm here in the Chicagoland area as we are approaching the first weekend, I guess, as we're technically getting out of summer. We're past Labor Day now. It's going to be a beautiful weekend if you're thinking about heading out to the Taste or enjoying the Bears kicking off Monday Night Football this coming up Monday. But meanwhile, for some of our friends out there on the coast, we got some developments in the tropics. So we're going to check in with Fox Weather for an update on that.
Tornado or two possible with a little bit of extra wind shear today. There's also a storm threat farther off to the east into the weekend. We'll get you updated on all of that. Plus, the first game of the NFL season is in the books, and the Rowie was right on the money. The risk of weather impact was in the high category. Lightning delayed the game last night for an hour during the third quarter. The Philadelphia Eagles hung on to take down the Dallas Cowboys. Nobody scored, though, after that stoppage. And with a whole slate of games this weekend, we're turning the Rowie knobs. We're dialing in the forecast for the NFL. It's all right now on Fox Weather Now. Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, as always, for being here with us on Fox Weather. Right now, it's 3 o'clock on the East Coast, noon out west. I'm Ian Oliver, and this is Fox Weather Now.
And you were just looking at an update from Fox Weather. Got some busyness happening out there in the tropics. We are in the middle of hurricane season, which will go until the end of October. Back here at home, another local story, very disturbing story that we're going to provide an update on. A former nurse at a local elementary school in Arlington Heights, she's accused of mismanaging and swapping the prescriptions for prescription drugs to students. She since received a felony conviction in that case. Tony E. Eitz received a 13-count criminal sentence that includes at least 90 days that they will serve in the Cook County Jail. We're going to be speaking a little bit more about this with Mike Sarasta, who is representing some of the families in this case. Thanks so much for being here.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
Doing well. So first, how did this case get on you guys' radar?
Well, we were originally contacted by one of the families affected, and after speaking with them, we ended up reaching out through them to some of the other families involved, ultimately ending up with 9 separate families in the Arlington Heights School District whose children were affected by the actions of this nurse.
So this nurse was convicted of swapping medications. What exactly does that look like?
So Tori Eitz, over a period of more than a year, was routinely swapping out prescription medication that was supposed to be dispensed to her students at Westgate Elementary School in Arlington Heights. On some occasions, she was replacing medication that she was taking with aspirin or other substitute medication. In some cases, she was texting parents and telling them that she had either lost or misplaced or dropped medication on the floor and needed replacements dropped off, and would try to meet parents in the parking lot to get replacement medication, which was then not dispensed to the students at any point.
Did we learn exactly what Tori was actually doing with these medications?
That it was not immediately clear. We believe that it was for her own personal use, that she was using it for her own purposes, but that was not part of our civil investigation into the side of what happened in this case.
On the other side of this, obviously, District 25, what's been their reaction to all of this?
So far, the district's main response has been to deflect and place all the blame on Nurse Eitz herself. We know that before this was reported to the police, that members of the administration at Westgate Elementary, as well as the superintendent, were made aware of concerns from parents and from other staff members about Nurse Eitz's conduct. And at no point did anyone from Arlington Heights School District report it to the Department of Children and Families for investigation, as is their required reporting under the law. And so far, they have tried to couch this as just a rogue nurse doing things on her own, when we know that there were school administration officials that were aware and did nothing to stop it.
What do you think is next for those school administrators who you say were aware of this and didn't really do anything with that information? Do you see future litigation coming in terms of that?
Well, back in April, we did file a lawsuit here in Cook County against Tori Eitz, as well as the school district, Ann Buck, who was the principal of Westgate Elementary, and the superintendent of schools in Arlington Heights. So that litigation is ongoing, and we expect through discovery to learn a lot more about what people within the school district knew and did not know.
And you said that you represent, I believe, the 9 families that were on the unfortunate side of this, where their kids' medications have been swapped out unknowingly to them. What's been the response since this verdict was handed down?
I think the families have now some degree of closure now that they know that Tori Eitz is going to face a felony conviction, that she will serve time in jail. I think overall the tenor of the families is one that they are satisfied that the state has made sure that Tori Eitz will be held accountable for these, just terrible actions against people who were in her care and she was supposed to take care of. I do think that there is still a general level of frustration and anger at the school district as well, and we expect to continue the case against those parties as well and hopefully hold them account for their role in this as well.
What are you hearing from the families in terms of their trust or lack thereof in the Arlington Heights School District there?
It's been very traumatic for these families. These are people who entrusted their young elementary-aged children to the school system. And, a school nurse is someone who has a unique degree of trust, especially with younger students. And it is not something that any parent expects to have that trust breached by a school nurse. This is someone who is generally regarded as a safe person within the school system, someone who's there to take care of your child when they need special needs, whether it's for medication or an injury that happens at school. And to have that trust breached by someone in that position has been very traumatic for all of them.
And it's traumatic for those families, also traumatic for those kids. If you can share any details on some of those tough conversations that these parents have had to have with their kids about this.
It's very difficult. One of the things that you're dealing with is these are all kids who were needing to take prescription medication to help them with a variety of conditions to help them be their best during the school day. And when medication, such as the ones that were swapped out, is missed, it can cause dysregulation in kids and cause them to not be at their best during the school day. So you have a number of students who got into trouble because they weren't on their medication or weren't able to do their best academic work. And we may not know the full extent of how much this has set these kids back for some time. But we do know that they're at a tender age where, socially, emotionally, and academically, everything is heightened, and it's very important for their development. So any disruption to that is unnecessary can cause really grievous harm to all of them.
Mike, what's next for this case?
Well, I think now the litigation in the civil side is really just moving forward and getting started. It's very important that we have the criminal part of this behind us and that we know that Torreyites will be held accountable criminally. But really the civil case is just getting started, and we expect to learn a lot more over the coming months as we find out more about what the district knew.
All right. Mike Sarasa, thanks so much for your time. Speaking with the attorney who's representing families whose kids had their prescription drugs at Arlington Heights School that was subbed out by a nurse there who has since been sentenced to 90 days in the Cook County Jail. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to head back now to Fox Weather. Again, we were telling you a little bit about a couple of storms brewing out there in the tropics. Let's listen in.
Just one, Lorena, we had the last advisory early this morning. The moisture is still present, so we'll talk about how that's going to influence our rain in the southwest. But look at Hilo right now. Gorgeous paradise, right? The Hawaiian Islands. Hilo on the windward side of the Big Island. Temperatures looking nice. But as we go through this weekend into next week, the risk for rain increasing. We have Kiko out there in the Pacific and another area to watch. Remember, Lorena has been dropped off the map, but we'll talk about the influences in the southwest in just a moment. Category 3 storm, 115-mile-an-hour winds, moving off to the west-northwest at around 9 miles an hour. A healthy-looking system. We've talked about this the last, almost 2 days at this point. The eye that jumps off the map here becoming almost nearly purely symmetrical, and a really intense burst of convection, thunderstorm development around the eye of the storm, in fact, possibly becoming annular in structure. We're going to talk about that coming up this hour, what that exactly means. But we have seen some weakening since about Thursday, right? We've seen that pressure slowly start to come up, and the overall weakening trend expected to continue for Kiko as it begins its approach to the Hawaiian Islands. Now, it will be nothing like it looks right now as it goes towards the Hawaiian Islands. Still some questions on the intensity and the overall impact, but tracking up to the north, we're going to expect at least some rain impacts there. And of course, we're going to be all over it here at Fox Weather. Here's that last advisory for Lorena. You can see really nothing left out of the structure of this storm, completely ripped apart by wind shear, cooler waters. But you can see the blossom of moisture still very present on mainland Mexico, and that moisture still lifting up into the Four Corners, Southern California. That's going to increase our flood risk. Now, this is slowly starting to taper as we head throughout the weekend, and it's getting worked up into the overall flow across the U.S. Here's a look at Prescott, Arizona. We were looking at these cameras yesterday as those storms bubbled up with our daytime heat. So we'll watch for it again. Blue sky off into the distance, but definitely starting to cloud up. So that's going to increase our shower coverage. In fact, look at this line of storms dropping down into Phoenix, starting to fizzle now over the I-17 up towards Flagstaff. It is a very kind of popcorn coverage, but we do still monitor that flood risk. Moisture beginning to shift into New Mexico, in fact, through spots like Texas and Oklahoma as we go through the weekend, the Southern Plains. Just a small sliver of a flood watch still up there on the board, but you can see how the rest of the day today goes. Scattered coverage, some of that tropically influenced, which means that that flood risk and the rain rate could still be impressively high.
Right, this a live look at Spokane, Washington, where the Northwest has some of the worst air quality in the country right now. That's all thanks to the wildfire smoke pouring in from California. We're headed to the Pacific Northwest when Fox Weather Now comes right back.
All right, we were just checking in with our friends over at Fox Weather. Time is now 2:12 on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. We got a lot more to get to this 2 o'clock hour. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to Chicago Live on this Friday. We got Mark Stroh here joining us at the mic.
Thanks for letting me in the door, by the
course,
way.
man.
You know,
You own the place.
Sometimes I knock, and the door's locked, and it's like, you know what? Not today. Go away.
If it opened, that means you're still working.
We're not really sure if we really want what you're selling. Yeah.
Of course, but you're selling us a beautiful forecast. That's what you're selling.
Have you seen it? You peeked ahead on the forecast
I
notes,
cheated.
haven't you? Yeah.
Did some homework.
You know, this has really been a really hot summer. A lot of humidity, day after day, temperatures in the upper 80s into the 90s, and we caught a break. We had a fundamental pattern shift, a pattern change, and we're going to stay in that pattern right through the weekend and into early part of next week. But by Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, we're back up into the 70s. We'll be back up close to 80 degrees for the early part of the week. But for the weekend, we're talking about temperatures generally in the upper 60s, which is kind of the sweet zone for a lot of us.
My favorite, yeah.
Right? You know, it's a little taste of early fall, a shift gears from where we were before. Tomorrow, I think it's going to look a lot like today. It's going to be a lot of clouds with some sun mixed in. and then more sunshine on Sunday. And then as we go into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, again, temperatures upper 70s, mid to upper 70s. And then late in the week, by Thursday and Friday, few clouds, maybe a shot of rain late in the week, and we're back down to around 60 for the daytime high temperature.
Now we know we got a lot of people who like to kind of get up early, maybe take the dog for a walk, or even go for a run early in the morning. Are we going to be waking up to temperatures in the 40s still?
Coming up overnight tonight, temperatures in the 40s.
Ooh.
And I think over the weekend, we're going to have a lot of temperatures in the 40s too. After that, as we push into next week, we're going to generally push back up into the 50s for overnight low temperatures. But, now here's the deal. We're talking about temperatures in the 40s at night and in the 60s during the day. On average, our normal daytime high for this date is 80 degrees.
We're a long way from there.
We're under indexing. So, one of the most common questions I have is, hey, are we ever going to see the 80s again? Well, of course we're going to see the 80s again. And we're going to be very close to it. Like I said, there's Tuesday and Wednesday with high temperatures in the upper 70s. We could easily see temperatures in the 90s again. So it's not out of the question. I mean, it's not going to be a week of long 90s. We might just briefly touch on it.
Up.
But again, so to go up to 90 degrees is only about 10 degrees above average, which, it's
Chicago,
definitely doable.
It can happen
right?
anytime.
Definitely doable.
One thing I don't see on that 7 days, any rain.
There could be some as we approach Friday. We've got some darker clouds coming in, temperatures falling back into the 60s. But, generally September is a pretty dry month. A lot of the questions you get as a meteorologist. When should I get married? I'm like, you asking me like what age or no what month, what week? September, October, pretty good because we generally have some great weather. It's dry, it's sunny, the humidity has kind of gone away, very little stormy activity. So September, October.
That sounds good, unless you're a college football fan.
Yeah, right.
Might have some different conversations there. You mentioned taste earlier. We got the taste of Chicago. And somebody's going to be maybe hanging out on a later portions of that. It ends at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Talking light jacket or something definitely. A little heavier.
Here in Chicago, anytime you go by the lake, and now this summer's been an exception because it's been so hot. A lot of times it's hot right up to the water's edge. But even in the summertime, you can have pretty warm days with the breeze coming in off the lake, and it can be 18 degrees cooler along the lake. So it's always, you got to be like a Boy Scout. Their motto is be prepared.
Be prepared.
So you have to be prepared for that even in the normal summer days, and definitely as we're going into this cooler time period where you get a breeze off the lake, or even if you don't, you're talking about temperatures in the 60s, especially as the sun goes down. A lot of people get fooled by this. It's 75 degrees right now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to stay warm like it has for the last month or two. No, when the sun goes down, it's going to start cooling off. So you have to be prepared.
Prepare for that. Also, Monday Night Football. Bears, similar story.
Yeah, I think we're going to see temperatures in the 60s about kickoff time. It will be partly sunny. It'll be clear to partly cloudy and dry. So it looks like pretty good football weather. Good early season football weather. It's not going to be really all that hot. The humidity levels are not going to be that bad. It's a lot of times first game of the season, it's 85 degrees and you're like,
humid,
you just want to pass out. But this is the kind of football weather that is not bad to start the season off with.
All right, Mark Stroh, thanks so much for your time.
Good to see you, my friend.
You as well. All right, now we're going to head actually to Washington at the White House where Trump advisor Stephen Miller is getting ready to make some remarks. Let's listen in there.
And so the mayor, to her credit, she signed an executive order creating the framework for that long-term cooperation. And now as a result of that executive order, the federal law enforcement assets, the National Guard assets, and the full federal apparatus will be able to work with the city to deliver this extraordinary public safety improvement for the long term. And you're only seeing the very beginnings of this. So, during the first few weeks, of course, we've seen these radical reductions in violent crime. We're just getting started. DEA, ATF, FBI have only just begun to identify, disrupt, and dismantle the criminal organizations that have been wreaking havoc on the city for so long. And we're going to take them apart member by member, group by group, piece by piece, and we're going to set this city free. I have time for one last question.
Even on immigration, could I ask you on immigration? And the Democrats attempt to drive a wedge between President Trump and Secretary Kennedy. Their attempt to do that at yesterday's CDC hearing.
Yeah, the Democrats are continuing to support a completely failed approach to public health. that we've seen over generations has resulted in chronic increases in obesity, in diabetes, in heart health, and just in general, the chronic disease burden on America has been extraordinary. It is the number one driver of public health costs, and it's the number one driver of early deaths. And of course, in particular, especially tragic has been the early childhood chronic disease burden. You know, so, and I say this as a parent of young children, there's so many kids you know who have allergies, who have asthma, who have skin conditions, you know, for example, psoriasis or eczema, who have all kinds of chronic digestive issues, gut issues. There's so many health issues. Not to mention, of course, the particularly terrifying illnesses like pediatric cancer. And so President Trump and RFK are working on getting to the systemic causes. What is our environment? What is in our approach to healthcare? What is in our approach to medicine that is either failing to address or is contributing to this chronic disease burden? And we all celebrate RFK, Bobby, for his leadership in this issue, and President Trump has been committed from the beginning to developing a comprehensive approach to reducing chronic illness in America. Time for one last question. Sir, over here.
Can I ask you about immigration, sir? On Venezuela, President of Colombia is saying that cartel of the Suns does not exist. What can you answer, and which message do you send to people in Venezuela after this indictment of Nicolas Maduro?
Well, as you know, and thank you for bringing it up, Nicolas Maduro is an indicted drug trafficker. He is indicted in federal court. He is a fugitive from justice in America. As I think you're also aware, there's a $50 million reward for the return of Nicolas Maduro. Not just him, his henchmen have also been indicted. So it is a drug cartel that is running Venezuela. This is a very important point. It's not a government, it is a drug cartel, a narco-trafficking organization that is running Venezuela. And this has been documented in federal court, and indictments have been secured. The people of Venezuela have been suffering and struggling under the reality of a nation that is so rich in resources, so rich in reserves, that is run by Maduro, the head of the cartel that you referenced, the Cartel de los Sols. That is absolutely one of the most ruthless criminal cartels on the planet. And many Americans may not realize that the drugs killing their kids are coming from Maduro, and also the criminal aliens killing their kids are coming from Maduro. So he's sending his drugs, he is sending his killers, his assassins into our communities, and he's working directly with other designated foreign terrorist organizations like the FARC in Colombia and all the Mexican drug cartels. So it's one continuous loop. And for decades and for years, for generations, we used our military to engage in action against terrorists in the Middle East and in Africa, while leaving unharmed the terrorists in our own hemisphere who are responsible for so much more American deaths, so many more American deaths, who have spilled so much blood across the Western Hemisphere, who have bereaved so many parents and families, and who have contributed to such a horrific cycle and just nonstop, relentless surge of violence in our cities. Every major city in America is suffering from cartel violence. Even the U.S.-based gangs are working directly with these cartels. The drugs, the guns, the weapons, the cash, the organization. We've been occupied by cartels for far too long. President Trump is finally allowing and directing the United States military to use its authorities under the Constitution to defend America from the terrorist organizations that have run free for too long in our own hemisphere. Thank you all. Thank you for the question.
One foreign policy. Chicago. Are you sending ICE operations there today?
Have they started yet, sir? ICE in Chicago?
Lock and pull camera.
And you were just listening to Stephen Miller making some remarks outside of the White House. Of course, he is an American political advisor. He was making some updates on how the Trump administration is going about in fighting against gang cartels and some of the devastating work that they are doing here in the United States of America. Now we're going to bring in Rich Wostocki. He is a retired Naperville PD and detective. He now runs a cyber training. He's president of Be Sure Cyber Training. And we have a very disturbing story where Rich is going to give us a little perspective on. It happens when a Southwest suburban man, he's been charged with soliciting pornographic videos from a 13-year-old girl who lived in Britain, and she was eventually found by her mother in her bedroom, and she hung herself with a charging cord to her smartwatch, and that girl later died a few short days later. That the person in this case is 27-year-old Cameron Zyle Johnson of Plano, Illinois, which is a suburb here. And again, he's been charged in this cyber death. So we want to bring in Rich a little bit to talk about some of the things that parents should be talking to about their kids to prevent something like this from happening. Thanks so much for your time, Rich.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So where do you want to start with this case? This little girl, 13-year-old, she was using an app called WhatsApp to communicate with this grown man who was in the town of Plano. So how should parents be thinking about something like this? Obviously, this is a worst case scenario where a 27-year-old is having these interactions with a 13-year-old girl. How do these interactions even start from what you've seen in your years covering cases like this?
So let's start out with some stats here. So according to the National Center of Missing Exploited Children, one internet predator can have up to 250 victims in their lifetime. So I'm sure that's not his only victim. So we need to be doing forensics on his machines and his accounts and who else he's talking to. So there's two reasons for that, okay? The first reason why predators are so successful is that parents suffer from a deadly disease that sets their children up for failure called the NMK syndrome. That stands for not my kid. Do you know we teach about 300,000, my team and I teach about 300,000 students. We taught in 80 schools across the country last year. Out of those 300,000 students, we had 40 kids come up to us after the presentation saying, that's happening to me and I don't know what to do. So it's the parents that are not watching their kids. And my heart goes out to this tragic loss. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say anything about that. But the problem is that parents are unwilling to have a technology talk with their kids. The second reason why that stat is so high is because some law enforcement officers who are going to take a police report about sexting, sextortion, or cyberbullying have never been trained on how to take a cybercrime report. So then they make up excuses why they can't take the report. Like, oh, just report it to the social network, they'll take care of everything. Or, lady, if you want me to take this report, I'm going to arrest your daughter for taking the pictures. You still want the report? And these are the two major things why this is allowed to happen and predators flourish, okay? So it all starts with, let me tell you what kids are doing behind their parents' backs. So when I teach middle school, right, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, how old are they? They're like 11 and 12 years old, right? Maybe 10, 11, 12 years old. And when I'm teaching these kids, I say, all right, how many guys got a Snapchat? Yeah. How many guys got Instagram? Yeah. How many guys got a WhatsApp? Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. How could you be in there? You got to be 13 in order to be in there. How could you be in there? Oh, you lied about your age, didn't you? Now, let's face it. Our kids are not the best mathematicians in the world, right? I blame core math, but that's besides the point. So what happens is that I ask the kids, how many of you whined and whined and whined until your parents gave in and let you have a WhatsApp, a Snapchat, or a TikTok? I'll get 10 kids raising their hands. I'll say, ask the next question. How many of you did it behind your parents' back? You didn't care what they said. 80% raised their hand. Okay? So that means you decided this was your thought process. Why can't I have a WhatsApp or a TikTok? I'm not going to do anything wrong. I'm not going to talk to a predator. I know better. My older brother and sister have it. Why can't I have it? Everybody in school has it. Why can't I have it? It's not fair. I'm just going to do it. So they go on TikTok or Snapchat, whatever, WhatsApp. They put their name in. They put their email in. They put their phone number in. Oh, crap. It's asking for my date of birth. Oh, I can't get this wrong. All right, let's see. I was born in 2014. Do I go up with my date of birth to be 13 or do I go down with my date of birth to be 13? I don't want to mess it up. I'm going to put in 2000. That'll get me in. So I asked the question, how many of you put in 2000 because you didn't want to figure out the math? 75% raised their hand. So how old are they today? 25. So guys like this, when our students, when our kids are not doing this with parent permission, they're putting their date of birth of 2000 because they don't want to figure out the math, or they're even putting their parents' date of birth of getting in. So when they do that, they're 25 years old. Who's going to come talk to them? Adults, because they're 25. Who's going to send them naked pictures? Adults, because they're 25. Who's going to ask your 12-year-old daughter for her naked picture? Adults, because she's 25. Okay? So as internet crimes against children detectives, we know that it's not only one. Once we get done with the forensics on this guy's devices, he's going to have numerous victims that he's been sextorting. So we have to understand it starts with the parents. The things that the parents do, especially when you allow your child to charge their devices in their rooms at night, you're actually inviting that predator into your house and saying, yeah, she's down the hallway on the left, have fun. That's what you're doing as a parent. When you allow your children to charge their devices in their rooms at night, and it starts with that.
So step one is definitely not letting your kids have those chargers, charge their devices in their rooms at night. Are there maybe some signs that parents should be looking out for? Because sometimes teens shut down and they don't really want to have those conversations where parents can tell something isn't quite right here.
Yeah, so two things I want to tell you about. So when I talk to parents and kids, here's the ground rules. Your kids own nothing until you're 18. I don't care if they cut grass all summer, babysat all winter, and they bought that new iPhone 16 with their own money. They don't own it. According to Illinois law and laws all over the state, except for one state, Oregon, they have no right to privacy on that cell phone. The parents are not only responsible for their food, clothing, shelter, and education, they are responsible for that technology, and they should go in there anytime they want. The big red flag is this. When you go in to look in your kid's phone and they change the passcode, something's wrong. Why did they change the passcode? The parent has to ask them. Oh, for privacy? I think not. That's because they're having some type of relationship that the parents wouldn't approve of. Let me explain to you what that technology talk should look like, okay? The technology talk should be this. Look, I went to this presentation the other day. I had no idea what was going on social media. Hi, Casey. I had no idea what was happening on their social media or the gaming platforms. Look, we know we threatened you before. If you do this, if you do that, I'm going to do this to you. I want you to take that and throw it out the window. If anybody ever tries to make you feel bad about yourself, anybody tries to get you to do something you know you shouldn't be doing, like sextortion or suicide, you need to come to us. So we developed a program called the Golden Ticket Protocol that we tell parents about. What this Golden Ticket Protocol says that when you're in danger, you need to come to us because we're responsible for you. And we're going to give you, check this out, the Golden Ticket magnet for the refrigerator. You put the Golden Ticket magnet on your refrigerator, and that kid sees that every single day. That they know whenever they're in trouble or in crisis, all they got to do is swipe the magnet and say, Mom and Dad, I got to talk to you. And there will be no consequences for whatever they're going to talk about. Those are the rules. And you would be surprised with this effort how many kids go to their parents because they're afraid of the consequences if they go to their parent. We have to train our parents and train our students how to have good technology talks and not threaten them with their technology because your kids will never go to you if you threaten them with their technology.
Rich, on the other side of this, how do, I guess, like people like the suspect in this case, Cameron, how do they seek out, I guess, underage kids for some of these things that they're doing? Are there certain characteristics that put some kids at risk more than others?
Yes. The two red flags that I give my students, and it usually starts out, the number one predator site in the world right now, you guys, is Roblox. Roblox is the largest game out there, the biggest game out there, and when they opened up chat between adults and children, that's when bad stuff started to happen. There are more predators on Roblox than any other gaming platform out there. So here's what happens. Predators are very, very patient. They will play with your kid for 2 or 3 months as another 11 or 12-year-old. And then what happens is your first red flag when I show my kids If someone tries to take you off your gaming platform to go to private chat, they are not who you think they are. Because if you had something to say to me, why not say it on the game? Why do I got to go to private chat? Here's why. The National Center of Missing and Exploited Children has a program called the Cyber Tip Program. All of the gaming platforms, cloud services, except for Apple, games and apps, they all report one of two things to the National Center. Number one, any type of grooming chat between adults and children. That AI program will pick it up, and the TOS, the Terms of Service team, will read it. If it's a violation, they'll send it to the National Center. Or if it's CSAM, child sex abuse material, or child pornography, if they're trading child pornography, it'll flag it, they'll read it, and they'll send it to National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. Predators know we do this. So if they can take your child off of the gaming platform to go to a place like WhatsApp, Snapchat, where the chat, or Discord, where the chat disappears or parents don't know about it, they got your kid. The second thing that happens, here's the second red flag. Once they take you off to the gaming platform to private chat, then they will do this to you. Hey, we've been friends so long. Do you want to see what I really look like? And your kid says, I don't care. So then they'll send 2 or 3 pictures of themselves naked to the victim. Well, that's not really them. Remember, they have 250 victims to pick from. Now they're catfishing the victim. And then what happens is they'll send those 3 pictures and videos, and the common denominator amongst almost every sextortion case comes this: you owe me 1 pic. When someone sends to you, you owe me 1 pic, you are about to be a victim of sextortion. So I asked that question in my schools, middle school, high school. How many guys in the past year have received, you owe me 1 pic? I'll get 30 kids raising their hands. It happens everywhere. So I have to give them a tool for that, right? So I said, okay, now when somebody says, you owe me 1 pic, here's what I want you to report back to them. I want you to text back to them, I don't owe you jack, bro. And I get them to, I say, what do you say? I don't know you, jack. I don't know you. And I get them to chant it, to scream it, to yell it, and they will remember that for the rest of their lives. So my job and the job of my team is to empower students in school never to be victims. When we give them these red flags, they'll never be victimized.
Rich, this has been some great perspective and some tips for parents on how to make sure that they prevent their child from being a victim of cyber crimes like the one we just saw happen actually across the pond in Britain. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much. And go to My Cyber Safe School if you want to schedule this at your school.
All right. Thanks so much, Rich. All right. Your time is now 2:40 on this Friday. We started this version of Chicago Live on this Friday with some breaking news of a suburban man who is on the verge of being arrested and charged for making some death threats against federal law enforcement. Our own Casey Cronis is now on the case. She is on the way to the courtroom where those documents are about to be unsealed. What have you learned so far, Casey?
Hey, Brian, we don't know too much right now. Really, all we know is what you just shared, that the FBI this morning made the arrest of, all they're saying is it's a suburban resident. We don't know what suburb, we don't know how old this person is or even their name, but we will be finding all of that information out here very shortly. It's 2:40 p.m. There's a court hearing at 3:30 p.m. here at Dirksen. We just parked outside of the courthouse, and they are going to be unsealing the initial arrest documents in this case. But sources tell us that this person was making threats against federal law enforcement agents, in particular ICE agents. And as we know, this is all coming at the same time that the Trump administration is planning an immigration crackdown and National Guard deployment.
Casey Cronis, thanks so much for your perspective, and we look forward to your reports. Again, you said that court hearing is going to take place at 3:30. We will have an update, I'm sure, on our news at 4 and at 5 o'clock. Thanks again. We'll check in with you later.
Sounds good. Stay tuned.
And in relation to that case, the FBI did post on social media today. I want to read a short statement from them where it says the FBI has zero tolerance for anyone who makes the criminal decision to compromise the safety of those who serve and protect our communities. Again, that message was from the FBI Chicago. We don't have a whole lot of details, but so far all we know is that a suburban man has been arrested, or they're planning to arrest a suburban man for making some death threats against federal law enforcement, specifically when it comes to ICE. We're going to be keeping you updated on that and much more when Chicago Live returns. Thanks for joining us on Chicago Live. It is Friday, which means it is time for some high school football. We're joined by Coach Tom Zibikowski. I believe I said your last name right. Former Bears player. He's going to have his first home game, now the head coach at St. Patrick High School. Thanks so much for your time.
You said it right. I appreciate you.
All right. I remember your time from when you were at Notre Dame. What made you kind of make that transition? We've been seeing so many, I guess, former pro football players and college players kind of now making that transition to high school. What made this an attractive opportunity for yourself?
A lot of it was getting back home. I was coaching at Brown University in Rhode Island for 2 years. I was coaching at Western Michigan for a year. There ain't nothing like being home. And, a lot of times you see kids that are 19, 20, 21 years old. You wish you had some time with them when they were younger to maybe mold them into, something a little more disciplined or something a little bit better. So to be able to see the kids, at 16, 17, 18 years old, you got a chance to really, help them out, mold them into something that they want to be.
So, Tom, what does it mean to you to have a chance to kind of put your own imprint and to truly build a program?
That is what I'm most excited about. I know there's some talent that there is here right now, but that is the appeal of, you think you can do it, but actually doing it and knowing you can do it are two different things. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to, really build a program from the ground up.
Now, I know you're still kind of new here at this program. At St. Patrick High School. What do you feel like you've learned about your squad from maybe the start of summer? I don't think kids do two-a-days anymore like when we played football back in high school.
No, right.
But what do you think that you've learned about them since maybe the start of summer camp to now you're actually getting into games?
They are a resilient bunch. They really are. What they've been through the last few years has been a lot. There's been some coaching changes. There's been some 2-7 seasons. There's been some blowout losses. These kids show up every day, happy to be there, excited to be there, and they give me their best every single day and at every practice. And I've grown really to love each and every one of them.
Are the kids in awe of you at all? I mean, you've had a great career. You played at Notre Dame. Kids are going to watch Notre Dame all the time on Saturdays. You played in the NFL. Walk me through your first time meeting them. What was that like?
It was good. A lot of these kids, if you ain't in the pros right now, you ain't nothing to them. So I think they're starting to understand who I am and what I'm about. But I think they like me for me more than, as cheesy as that sounds. I do think they've gotten to know me and they I'm pretty humble. I don't ever let anyone know what I've done or what I've accomplished. It just don't ever feel right. But I think they see that and they feed off of that, and they've grown to love me as well.
What would you say are some of the hallmarks of your brand of football?
It's going to be tough. We're going to be in shape. We're going to be fundamentally sound. We're worried more about winning the fight than we are about the scoreboard. So we compete, and that result will take care of itself. Bill Walsh said that football, at least 15-20% of football ain't even up to you. So, and you got to take that in consideration of the game. It's an oblong ball, could bounce in any direction. Depends on what the refs do. That can really have an impact on the game. You got to be focused on getting better every single week and every single game, and that's what we do here.
Yeah, the ball could bounce either direction. The ref could make the call or not make the call. It's kind of a lot like life in general. What do you hope that this game of football teaches these young kids and these young men that you're going to be working with every single day?
Well, ever since the elites in the Ivy League started this game so long ago, it was to make sure that our young men don't get soft. And they had that foresight in 1860. So I don't think much has changed with, making sure these boys that are going to turn into men, if you want to be a father, I'm a father of 3. It's back-breaking work every single day if you're doing it right. And I think that, it's less about state championships and more about molding young men into productive members of society and phenomenal fathers and phenomenal husbands.
You guys are definitely going about things the right way. Congratulations on this new venture for you, and we look forward to what you guys are going to do in the future, and good luck this season. Appreciate your time.
I appreciate you so much for having me on.
All right, time is now 2:49. Thanks so much for joining us on Chicago Live. We got much more to come. We've got about 11 minutes left. We're going to be right back with you after a short break. Welcome back to Chicago Live on this beautiful Friday. A lot of people outside enjoying the Bean. Of course, big time tourist attraction just down the street from the Bean. This weekend, you're going to have a chance to participate in some other fun events that are happening here. Taste of Chicago, that's the word I was looking for. It's happening this weekend. A couple weeks ago, we had the Air and Water Show, which is also in the same place where you can go to the Taste of Chicago this weekend. But that is not the only air show that's happening here in the Chicagoland area. Also happening is the Northern Illinois Air Show. We got a chance to speak with a couple of the pilots there. Could you both introduce yourselves?
Hey, how's it going, sir? I'm Lieutenant Scott Crowder, call sign Mr. Rogers.
And Lieutenant John Haslett, call sign Earbud.
Thank you both for being here. And I want to start, how do you guys come up with those names? Is it given or do you get to pick it? I want to start with that.
Well, your best friends and your squadrons are the ones that pick your call signs. You have no say in what your call sign's going to be, so you're just along for the ride at that point.
Can you share a little perspective on how you both earned yours, if you can share that story with us?
Yeah, so I'm Mr. Rogers, everybody's favorite TV character from the 80s and the 90s. I've got 5 children of my own, so I got my own neighborhood of children. Hence, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood is kind of how I got that one. So
you got the sweater to go with it?
And I originally had been given Airbud because the squadron had determined I was not that smart, but I was very loyal, kind of like a dog. And then we were flying out to the carrier. I had an issue with one of my ears, and when I landed, I had some blood actually coming out of my helmet. And Skipper called me Earbud instead of Airbud, and that stuck forever, and it's my name now.
Definitely want to thank you both for your service, for sure. What made both of you want to fly?
For me personally, it was going to air shows when I was a kid. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and so my very first time going to an air show, I saw the Blue Angels flying over San Francisco, and that's kind of what led me down that path of being a naval aviator. And so it's really cool to come full circle now and be a demonstration pilot for the Growler Air Show team and kind of carry that on and go full circle.
My dad was actually an Air Force pilot, so I got to see aviation from a very young age, going out to the runway and watching him take off in full afterburner at night. So at that point, I knew what I wanted to do. I actually applied to the Air Force and the Navy at the same time. Navy gave me a pilot spot first, so here I am.
And this weekend, you guys are going to be participating in the Northern Illinois Air Show. Can you walk us through the process of preparing for a show like this?
Yeah, so the team got selected back around last December or so, that time frame. From then on, we took a look at the profile that last year's team had used, refined it a little bit. We every year want to make it a better show than the year before. And at that point, we'll work with Boeing to do a couple simulators on the safety aspects of the air show. Then we'll do a couple simulators ourselves and eventually do a certification with the FAA down in Lemoore. We did that back in March. And then as the season goes on, we'll always have currency flights, making sure that every pilot is current and ready to go before we get to one of the air shows. So rather than one big training evolution, it's kind of just an ongoing process to make sure that we're always ready.
And when everybody's kind of watching you guys, what's going through your mind? Are you kind of focused? I guess the mission is to entertain in this sense.
Yeah, we want to entertain. We want to show people what these Navy jets can do. But in the moment, when you're out there, you're mostly thinking about your airspeed, your altitude, where your other jet is, and what's coming next, rather than focusing what's going on the ground.
And I also want to know, what kind of jets do you guys fly currently? And is it different from what you do just for the show this weekend?
Yeah, so the jet we fly is the EA-18G Growler. It's a highly missionized and specialized variant of the F-18 Super Hornet. It's the same jet we fly in air shows. It's the same jet we fly. We're actually instructors back at Naval Air Station, Whidbey Island, Washington. So 99% of the time, we're instructing the new generation of Growler pilots and electronic warfare officers. And then for us on weekends, we get to take this jet out on the road and show the American public what it can do and its capabilities.
How do you guys feel like a show like this can also be used as a recruiting tool for future pilots?
I'd say every one of our shows is a recruiting tool. I mean, like Mr. Rogers said, a lot of people that we work with have a similar story that they went out to an air show, they saw the jets, and that was a decision point for them. They decided they wanted to come fly, whether they decide to go Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, or go into Army aviation. For a lot of people, it's an air show where they first get exposed to military aviation.
Got to ask you guys, this question actually came from our producer, Jim. You know, Top Gun, a very famous movie. So, yeah, you guys are already laughing. How realistic is that compared to what's actually going on?
I'd say there's some things that are relatively realistic. You know, some of it is obviously a little bit of Hollywood. From the most recent one, you know, we don't get cleared down to 10 feet on training sorties. And I don't know anyone that wants to do like a 9.5 or a 12G pull, whatever they did out of a canyon. But, you know, the training and some aspects are realistic.
All right, man. Thank you both for your service and for the show you're going to put on this weekend at the Northern Illinois Air Show. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
All right, time is now coming up on 2:58. We just got done talking some high school football. Bears, of course, are playing Monday night here at Soldier Field against the Vikings. And the Vikings, they have a quarterback who's from right here in Chicagoland. Our very own Tina Nguyen got to spend some time with J.J. McCarthy. Thanks again for joining us, Tina. How are you?
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing
so nice
well,
to join you,
doing
Brian.
well.
I think this is my first time joining you.
Yeah, this is going to be good. So we got about two.
Please excuse the background. I'm in a kind of a dark-ish room, so here at Hallis Hall.
I'm sure you've just been doing some editing and doing some interviews as well. So you spent some time with J.J. McCarthy. He grew up in LaGrange Park. I wanted to know, did his family grow up as Bears fans?
Yes, yeah. So for this story, my whole inspiration behind it, I was actually, out at LaGrange Park a few weeks ago. Max Michaels, a little kiddo who was on the home run derby there up in Williamsport. His brother Nico had a shirt on that said, "Just a kid from LGP," from LaGrange Park. I was talking to his dad about it. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy is from LaGrange Park, and when he won the national championship at Michigan in 2018, he said, "I'm just a kid from LaGrange Park, Illinois, trying to be the best that I can be every single day." And that was what inspired like this whole town and this group of kiddos to have these shirts made for him. They were inspired by him. So that was kind of my like the seed for me to be like, you know what? J.J. McCarthy is about to make his first NFL start. How cool would it be to go back home and just kind of get a feel on, hey, you know, what was it like for him growing up in this town population of like 13,500? So we talked to his old high school coach, Tim Rackey at Nazareth Academy. He won a high school football championship there back in 2018, was runner-up, I believe, the year before in 2017. We talked to Jim DeCipio, who is like the president of the village of LaGrange Park, and then we went to Forest Road Elementary as well, and got the chance to touch base with some of his elementary school teachers that had him, that also had like his siblings, his two sisters as well. So it was just really cool just to see like everyone obviously had a ton of great things to say about him, his family as well, but just how humble he is. Like, he's someone where, I mean, you meet him out and you talk to him for a few minutes and you feel
Tina,
like
I'm going to have to interrupt you because
this visit today. There's been a lot of speculation about what's happening at Naval Station Great Lakes and involving this threat by President Trump to send troops or other federal officials into the Chicagoland area. We wanted to come to the source, and I'll tell you why. This Great Lakes Naval Training Station is one of the most important defense facilities in the United States. Every man and woman who enlists in the United States Navy goes through those gates and faces initially 9 weeks of basic training. They come from all over the United States, and every Thursday there's a ceremony where as many as 1,000 of these recruits are approved and become officially members of the Navy and go on to defend our country. It's been my honor and responsibility for many years as senator to make sure that this base is adequately financed, supported, and has the resources necessary to train these young men and women. It's been an honor to do that, and I've been joined in it with Senator Duckworth and Congressman Schneider. My major concern was to make sure that no exercise of political theater is an obstacle to the mission of the Great Lakes Naval Training Station. That if this president wants to use this station for any purpose of invading Chicago with his professionals or military personnel, it cannot be at the expense of their mission. And that's why we asked for this meeting today. We met with the admiral in charge, and he took us through the whole process of how this came to be. Great Lakes Naval Training Station was first contacted on August 14th with the proposal that they make some space available for the administration's Department of Homeland Security. They negotiated and released information as to what was agreed to, and we discussed it in detail. We tried to get a meeting today with the Department of Homeland Security to find out exactly how they view their mission if they come to Great Lakes Naval Training Station. We couldn't do it. They ended up saying that they were unavailable and that they were locking the doors to the building that's going to be considered, and we wouldn't be able to enter it and see it. It appears to be a rather mundane, routine office building, nothing particularly unusual about it. But they would not even meet with us to discuss it. This kind of secrecy is not part of our government and shouldn't be. It's an indication that there's something about this mission they don't want the public to know. We want to make sure that the public and members of Congress know in detail what's going to happen here. When you take a look at what's coming down the road, they're engaged in a 1-month commitment here at Great Lakes to pursue some sort of mission which is as yet undefined and not described. But it cannot be at the expense of the mission of this Great Lakes Naval Training Station. I want to say, before turning it over to my colleagues, I think this is a terrible act of political theater that is underway at the expense of a lot of people and at the expense of taxpayers. The mission that President Trump dreamed up in Los Angeles cost so far $140 million to the taxpayers for him to have this little folly in Los Angeles. We don't know if he goes forward in Chicago what's going to happen. If his goal is to reduce crime, I welcome him to dedicate federal resources to stopping the flow of criminal guns from other states into the city of Chicago. That's something the president can do and will not touch. That's a real world of criminal violence and what's happening in this country. Instead, he wants to have troops on the street in an effort to embarrass Democratic politicians. That's what this is all about. If he's looking for the highest crime areas in the United States to add federal resources, you wouldn't start in Chicago. You'd start in many red states where the governors and mayors have problems of their own which need federal assistance. I'm sorry that we're at this position. It is a waste of federal tax dollars. It is not going to reduce crime. It's political theater, and it shouldn't be at the expense of taxpayers and people, the professionals in the United States Navy. Let me turn it over to my colleague.
Here, we got it, Senator.
You do.
Sorry.
Oh dear.
We'll get it.
That's not a got it. I wish
That's a mostly got it.
Cheers.
You know what? 80%. I say
Thanks a lot,
80%
Craig.
solution. Yeah.
No faith.
Sorry, Dick. It was a misclick in here. Oops, sorry. Good morning. So, I wanted to add further to what our senior senator, Senator Durbin's, mentioned, that what we did learn was that this will be a largely ICE DHS effort. It is, they have been told by the facility, by Great Lakes, that they cannot bring lethal munitions, that they are only to be getting office space itself, that there are no barracks that are available for them to use. Again, I sit on the Armed Services Committee, and one of the things I wanted to emphasize was that we will not allow the diversion of taxpayer dollars that were appropriated for military readiness or military training for Great Lakes to be diverted from that mission, which is critical to our nation's security, into ICE's efforts to intimidate people on the streets of our city. And we've been assured that that will not happen. But we will keep our eyes on it, and we will continue to maintain oversight to what exactly happens. The initial request is just for 30 days from September 5th to October 5th, but we know that this administration, every time there's a bad news cycle, in this case, you saw the rally with the Epstein victims. Immediately, Donald Trump does something to try to distract us from his failures. But we will not allow him to weaken our nation's Navy. We will not allow him to weaken naval base Great Lakes in order to pursue his political theater. It was a great meeting with the Navy. They are deeply concerned about the community. They are concerned about their sailors and their training, and they're making sure that that is upheld to its highest standards, and that whatever happens with DHS and ICE, it will not interfere. Some of the questions I asked them was, are there any resources that are going to be diverted from training? They said, no, that will not happen. I also talked to them about some things that we need to be looking for into the future, which is their participation with the community, and that I asked the Navy to be in touch with our mayor and maintain the communications with the community so that the community members know exactly what is happening with DHS and ICE at Great Lakes, and that we make sure that what is happening with Donald Trump's political theater does not damage the very good relationship that the Navy has with our local North Chicago community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to...
The writing thing.
Sorry?
Put it in writing.
Yes, and the other thing that we did find out, which was very frustrating for us, because in every communication that we've had with DHS and DOD, they've refused to write things down. It's all been verbal. And we asked the same thing of the Navy leadership, and they said that it's also been, with very few instances, been all verbal. So we are going to be requesting that the Navy leadership at Great Lakes provide us in writing all the criteria and conditions for ICE and DHS to occupy this one office building, specifically that it is office space only, that there are no lethal munitions that can be stored, that there will be no barracks or housing made available for the detainment of anyone, and that there is also no housing that will be made available for DHS personnel. Additionally, I did ask a question because I did hear a rumor about potentially Marine Corps reserves being activated. They said that they have not heard anything along those lines either. So there's also no housing that at this point has been committed to any reservists that will be activated as well. I do ask the community that as you deal with the members of the Navy, with our sailors, remember that these are men and women who are swore a duty and oath of office to defend us. They're doing their jobs. We are going to do the work on the political side, but let's make sure that we uphold our respectful members of our military who are doing their jobs and doing the best thing that they can and are doing everything that they can to remain apolitical in this terrible condition. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Congressman Snyder.
You got it?
I've got it.
Well, Jesse, can you just clarify, was this meeting this morning?
Yes.
Just now.
We just came from it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
How long was it?
Over an hour. We had the meeting, and then we toured both the building itself, and we also toured the area where the non-lethal munitions will be stored.
About 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just want to reiterate what the senators have said. Before I do, I want to thank the senators for working together to make sure we protect the mission of Naval Station Great Lakes and we protect the people we represent. And I'll touch on the Navy base. I'll touch on the deployment of ICE and where we're going from here. But Naval Station Great Lakes, I'm proud to represent Naval Station Great Lakes, proud to be here with Mayor Rockingham, Mayor of North Chicago. It is the largest training center of the United States Navy. Every single Navy recruit who enlists in the United States Navy comes to Great Lakes for basic training. At any given time, as Senator Durbin mentioned, up to 1,000 people are graduating each week. There's 10 to 12,000 recruits on base going through basic training, learning to become sailors, essential for the security of our nation. In addition, there are what are called A schools. There are sailors who are getting their training before they are deployed for their specific job in the Navy. They come back and they get reinforcement and new training. The preparedness of our Navy, the security of our nation depends on the mission of Naval Station Great Lakes, and we need to make sure that what DHS does while they're for 30 days at the base does not get in the way of that mission. And that was our first focus, to make sure is that the mission of Naval Station Great Lakes, the preparedness of our Navy, the preparedness of our sailors is maintained at the highest level at all times. Second point I'll make is that what we're seeing around the country, this administration working to scare and terrorize our communities, to send people in without insignia designations of what agency or what service they're with, covering their faces with masks, is doing nothing more than terrorizing and scaring people, not making us safer or more secure, but putting a wedge in our communities that needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. As far as, and the Senator touched on this as well, as far as crime in our communities, if the President wanted to focus on the crime, the states with the most crime, 8 of the 10 states with the highest crime rates are Republican-led. Right? But it's not a Republican or Democratic issue. We need to address crime in our country. We need to make sure our communities are safe and secure. If the president wants to work with us in Congress to make sure our communities are safe and secure, he could release the $158 million he's holding up to address gun violence in this country. He could release the $800 million he is holding up to help our communities, our police departments, protect our communities, to fight violent crime, to invest in those communities. We need more social workers in our schools. We need more police. We need more first responders. That's how we fight crime. Not sending in National Guard who have a mission to protect our nation in other ways, to go into our cities and terrorize people, but working with our communities together, hand in glove, investing in our first responders, giving police the resources, the people, the training, the resources they need to keep our communities safe. That's not what this administration is doing. They're deflecting, trying to keep the eye of the American people away from the damage they're doing to our economy. Costs aren't down, to our security. Watch what's happening around the world. That's what we should be focused on. This administration should not be sending National Guard to Chicago, but to be working with Chicago and other cities around the country, making sure they're safe and secure. So it's now my privilege to turn it over to the mayor of North Chicago, Leon Rockingham.
Thank you. Let me just echo what has been said. Again, I'm Leon Rockingham, the mayor of the city of North Chicago. I want to thank Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, and Congressman Brad Snyder for being here and showing the light on what's going on at Naval Station Great Lakes. Again, you know, our biggest concern is making sure the men and women at Naval Station Great Lakes get the training that they need to protect our country. Again, it's been echoed. Naval Station Great Lakes is the only recruit training center in the United States based here in the city of North Chicago. North Chicago's concern is to be able to make sure that our city continues to be safe, that no one comes in and tries to deport any of our citizens. As you see right here, because of what has happened, I've got my patrol, my police department out where we could be other areas being throughout our city to be able to patrol throughout the city of North Chicago. So I just want to say thank you to both senators and to our congressmen for what they have done for the city of North Chicago to continue to make sure that we continue to be safe. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Senator Durbin.
Questions?
Questions. You mentioned having things written down. Why is that important?
Well, I think several points that were made need to be memorialized. The starting date, pardon me, starting date and the end date is one of those things. Whether there'll be lethal weapons allowed on base is another. No detention facilities.
All right, as you see there, this is getting started there in the Oval Office. Let's listen in as President Trump is signing those executive orders, expecting to change the name of the Department of Defense.
Discuss them, please.
Yes, sir. This is H.R. 2808. This is the Homebuyers Privacy Protection Act. The congressman here was the lead sponsor, so I think maybe he
John Ross, yes.
Say more about it than I can.
Please.
Well, it's difficult for Americans to buy a home, particularly after the last 4 years, sir. But with the president's signature today, we're going to make it easy for people to buy a home without getting hassled. For years, their private personal information has been bought and sold in the open market, resulting in them getting innumerable phone calls and text messages. But with your signature today, we're going to put an end to that so that when Americans try to realize the American dream of owning a home, they're able to do so without being harassed.
Good job. Good. It's a great honor, John. Okay, there it is. And that's going to help a lot of the homeowners of our great country. John, want to hold that?
Sure.
Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Will, you go ahead.
And I'd like to leave you with this gift from a constituent back in Tennessee.
Oh, I could use that at night.
It's an American flag.
That's very nice. I like that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That's very nice.
Next, we have a number of executive orders for your attention, sir.
Okay.
From 1789 until 1947, our nation won some of its greatest military victories under the direction of a Secretary of War operating within a Department of War. Today, with this executive order, you will authorize the current Secretary of Defense and the current Department of Defense to once again embrace this great lineage and once again be named the Secretary of War and the Department of War.
So this is something we thought long and hard about. We've been talking about it for months, Pete and I and Dan. Dan came into the fold. By the way, a great general. He headed up I wouldn't call it an attack. I'd almost call that one maybe even more than an attack. What he did with Iran, you saw the success of that operation. It was perfect. In fact, this was sent to me by the great company that makes that particular B-2 bomber, and it was flawless. It was actually flawless. They flew for 37 hours back and forth, and there wasn't a bolt that was out of condition. There wasn't an engine failure. There was no problem. It was a perfect attack, and it knocked out any possible nuclear capability for Iran, which nobody wanted to see, and we weren't going to put up with. So great job, Dan. And we've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And then we decided to go woke, and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War. And I'd like to ask our Secretary of War to say a few words. Pete Hegseth. I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest manufacturers of equipment by far. There's nobody to even compete. And you see that with this and so many other things. The Patriots are the best. Every element of the military, we make the best by far. So, Pete, I'd like to ask you and maybe Dan Raisin Kane to say a few words, please.
Mr. President, thank you. After winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War to the Department of Defense in 1947. And as you pointed out, Mr. President, we haven't won a major war since, and that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, or the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize that this name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos, restoring victory and clarity as an end state, restoring intentionality to the use of force. So at your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back. Thank you for your leadership and your clarity. We're going to set the tone for this country. America first, peace through strength, brought to you by the War Department. We're back.
All right, thank you very much. Very well stated, and really it has to do with winning. We should have won every war. We could have won every war, but we really chose to be very politically correct or wokey, and we just fight forever. And then we'd, win, lose. We wouldn't lose, really. We just fight to sort of tie. We never wanted to win. Wars that every one of them we would have won easily with just a couple of little changes or a couple of little edicts. I was told that ISIS would take 5 years to win. And Dan Kane, when I told him how long would it take, he said, I think about 4 weeks, sir. I said, what do you mean 4 weeks? I was told 5 years by the people in Washington. You know who they were, 5 years. I said, you can't do it in 4 weeks. I actually flew to Iraq to meet with him, and I met him at a big air base. And remember that famous day, right? It turned out to be a famous day for our country because you're now the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the biggest deal. And he is, because he did things that everybody said he couldn't do. So they said it was going to be 5 years, and he knocked them out in about 4 weeks total, 100%. we took over, and ISIS was gone, and pretty amazing. But we never fought to win, and now if we have to fight at all, we solved 7 wars. We have the one that I thought was going to be probably one of the easier ones, and that's with President Putin and Ukraine. And that turned out to be one that's a little bit more difficult, but the 7 are done. They were supposed to be much more difficult to solve. I solved every one of them, and we're going to get the other one done too. But it turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I thought. And it'll get done or they'll be held to pay. But because they're losing 6 to 7, it used to be 5. I used to tell you 5. Now it's almost 7. I guess 7,000 people last week. 7,813 people, young soldiers died. Russian and Ukrainian, not American soldiers. But it's a shame. And it's just, they're human lives, and I want to see it stop. But General Kane's done a fantastic job. And again, defeated ISIS, which they said would take a long time. And it didn't take a long time at all, and did other things that people said really couldn't happen. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest soldiers in the world. Dan, say a few words, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. It's a true honor for me today to represent the incredible men and women of America's joint force. Today and every day, the 2.8 million service men and women stand ready to fulfill our sacred duty to protect America at home and abroad. As the President said, America's military is the single most powerful fighting force in the world. The mission you and the Secretary have given us is clear and unambiguous: to deliver peace through overwhelming strength. And I remind everyone that the U.S. military can reach any adversary at the time and place of our choosing. Service to this nation is an incredible gift, and we're grateful and honored every day to do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, and it's an honor to sign this. And we will do that right now. I think that's a big one, I'll be honest. That's a big one.
It's a big one, Mr. President.
Do you have any questions on this subject? We're going to be discussing the G20 in a couple of minutes, but yes, please.
Mr. President, what gave you the idea for this rebrand? And a question for you, the newly minted Secretary of War. What message does this send to our enemies, to our allies, to the American people? And again, what gave you the idea for this rebrand at this moment?
I think it sends a message of victory. I think it sends really a message of strength. We're very strong. We're much stronger than anyone would really understand. And again, having the great equipment, we have just so much better. You look at all of the, just any of it, submarines as an example. We're 20 years ahead of anyone else. Nobody even compares. And I let a lot of this happen in my first term. We totally rebuilt our military. And then, of course, you had that catastrophe in Afghanistan, where they gave up a lot of the equipment, but a relatively small amount, but a lot. It was a lot in Afghanistan. I think it was the most, General, I'd say it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country, the way that happened, the way they went to the wrong airport. They should have gone to Bagram, not the local little airport with no security, with tight quarters, etc. You know what happened. I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, frankly. That was under the Biden administration. That was terrible. And we were going to be leaving, but we were leaving with strength and dignity. We were going to keep Bagram, because Bagram's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. We're going to have that all to ourselves, a big, beautiful place built many years ago from money that today would be the equivalent of, many, many billions of dollars. You couldn't build it. The longest runways, the most powerful runways in terms of load capacity. And we just walked away from it. So stupid. And they were fools. The people were fools. No, we have the strongest military, and I think that indicates we have the strongest military. And we had it, and we won World War I, we won World War II, we won everything before, and as I said, we won everything in between. And we were very strong, but we never fought to win. We just didn't fight to win. We didn't lose anything, but we didn't fight to win. We could have won every one of those wars quickly, but they went a route that I think was probably politically correct, but not correct for our nation. So I think the Department of War sends a signal. Yeah, please.
Mr. You alluded to this a little while ago, but you said that this rename is a, quote, a good reflection of where the world is at right now. How do you square naming it the Department of War when you've been pursuing peace in so many different parts of the world?
Well, I think I've gotten peace because of the fact that we're strong. If we weren't strong, those 7 deals I told you about, the 7 wars, a majority of them wouldn't have happened. They happened for 2 reasons, trade and our strength. Those are the 2 reasons. And probably strength may be more important than trade. So if we, I was very proud of all those wars. Those were wars that could not be settled, and I settled all of them. And we'll get the other one settled also. That'll get settled. But without the strength, we wouldn't have settled any of them. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, is it your expectation that Congress will codify this name change in the law?
I don't know, but we're going to find out. But I'm not sure they have to. We're signing an executive order today, but we're going to find out. We're going to see. If they do, we're going with it, and we're going with it very strongly. There's a question as to whether or not they have to, but we'll put it before Congress.
Do you know how much this rebrand will actually cost? And are there any concerns about, you know, the Pentagon's mission of actually cutting back on spending?
Yeah, but not a lot. You know, we know how to rebrand without having to go crazy. We don't have to recarve a mountain or anything. We're going to be doing it not in the most expensive. We're going to start changing the stationery as it comes due and lots of things like that. We're not going to be doing things like have been done in the past when they changed the name of forts that shouldn't have been changed. Those names of the forts should not have been changed, at least for the most part. And as you know, many of them have been changed back already. At the request of the communities, every one of those communities said, we want our name back.